Hello, good morning everyone, and welcome to the online session on Java programming. And in the previous class, we have started discussing about the buzzwords of Java programming language. And so let us start from the first feature or first buzzword of Java, and then we can later move on to the next topic. So here, features of Java programming language can also be called as buzzwords of Java. And here are the list of some of the buzzwords of Java programming language. You can see on the screen. So the first buzzword of Java programming language is it is an object oriented programming language. And the second one is it is simple, secure, platform independent, robust, portable, architectural neutral, dynamic, interpreted, high performance, multi-threaded, and distributed. So in the future, if somebody asks you about what is a Java programming language, then you have to say about Java is a object-oriented, simple, secure, portable, platform-independent, robust, architecturally neutral, dynamic, interpreted, high-performance, multi-threaded, and distributed programming language. So that itself definition states that the following all the features are included in Java programming language. So let us start seeing each and every feature in detail. So let us start with the first one, that is object oriented. What is the reason why we are calling this Java is an object oriented programming language, right? So we all know that there are some object oriented concepts. We all know that class, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, encapsulation, object, all these are object oriented concepts. So the programming language which is going to support all these concepts is called as an object oriented programming language, right? So in Java supports the concept of classes, the concept of objects, the inheritance, encapsulation, abstraction, and polymorphism. So here the Java is supporting all the object-oriented concepts. That is why we call this Java as an object-oriented programming language. When we consider the C programming language, in C programming language, there is no concept of object, there is no concept of class, or there is no concept of inheritance, polymorphism, etc. That is why we cannot call the C programming language as an object-oriented programming language. And at the same time, if we consider the C++ programming language, in C++, the language supports all the concepts, that is class, object, inheritance, polymorphism, abstraction, and encapsulation. But in C++ programming language, if we observe the main method of the C++ programming language will not be encapsulated, which means the main method of the C++ programming language will not be inside a block. It will be open. So that means the encapsulation rule was violated in case of C++ programming language. If we keep the main method inside a block, which means we are going to encapsulate the main method also. So, but in C++, unfortunately, we are not going to encapsulate the main method. That is the main reason why we are calling that C++ as a partial object-oriented programming language. It is following the encapsulation rule in all the methods, but in case of main method, it is violating the encapsulation rule. In Java programming language, even the main method, that is the public static void main string args, the main method will also be encapsulated. So the people who already wrote some programs in Java, they all know that the main method will also be kept inside a class. It will never let be open. The main method will also be inside a class, which means in the case of main method also, it is following the rule of encapsulation. So that is why we are calling this Java as an object-oriented programming language, right? And let us see the second feature of Java programming language. It is platform independent. We all know that in every programming language, if we write a program, then we are going to compile the program and then we are going to run the program. During the compilation of the program, what is going to be happening is initially the syntax of the programming language will be checked. If the syntax of the programming language is perfect, then the language which we have written will be converted into some other language, because computers never understand your language. Computers only understand the machine level language, that is 1 and 0. Other than the combination of ones and zeros, the computer never understands anything. So if you're trying to write a program in a C or C++ or a Java, we will write the program in high level language, which will not be understood by the computer system. In order to make the computer system to understand that particular program, we need to convert that program into a machine level language. So let us check all the things. So in C programming language, I will just a second. I want to show what will happen in case of C programming language and what will happen in case of C++ programming language, and what is going to be happen in case of Java programming language, and what is the reason why we are calling this Java as an platform independent programming language, and why we are not calling C and C++ as platform independent language. Just a second. Okay. So the program, what we are going to write is a high level language program. And the program after compilation, let us assume it is a low level language program, right? And after getting the low level language program, we are going to see the output of the program. So let us discuss what happens in case of C. So in C programming language, if we write a program of addition of two numbers, then we are going to save that program with .c extension. So, and then if this program gets compiled, right, compiled, there is one file which will be generated with the .obj extension. So if we write a program in C and we save the program as add.c, and if we try to compile that program, if the program is syntactically perfect, then it will be converted into a add.obj file. And if we run this add.obj file, we are going to get one more file called as add.exe, which means an executable file where the output of the program will be inside this executable file. So the things inside this add.c will be high level language, that is the program what we have written, And whenever we compile this high level language, it will be converted into a low level language, and all the contents of the low level language are stored in a file which is having an extension of .obj. And whenever we run this particular add.obj file, a new file will be created with a .exe extension, which means it is an executable file. And the output of the program will lies in this add.exe file. So this is generally what will happen in case of C programming language. So when we compile, the entire program is going to be converted into the machine level language, that is ones and zeros, right? The entire program is going to be converted into the machine level language, that is ones and zeros, right? And at the same time, after converting the machine level language into ones and zeros, we are trying to run the program, and we are getting the output of the program. And let us see what will happen in case of C++, right? So in case of C++, we are going to save the program as .cpp, because we are dealing with the C++ programs. We have to maintain the extension .cpp. And whenever this particular CPP file was converted, and we are going to get an object file which will have the machine level language. And whenever this object file is being run by the programmer, then we are going to get an executable file in which the output of the program will be there. So this is the same thing will be happen in case of C and in case of C++. So in both the cases, the things what we have written will be converted into, just a second. Right, the things what we have written will be converted into from high level language to a machine level language, and then that machine level language will get executed in order to get the output of the program. And but in case of Java, what is going to be happen in the sense, if we write a program in Java, let us assume that we are saving that program as add.java, and if we compile this file, we are not going to get an object file. We are going to get a file with an extension of dot class. And remember one thing, in this dot class, right? In this dot class file, the high level language is not converted into machine level language. It is converted into an intermediate code. It is converted into an intermediate code, and the name of the code is bytecode. Very, very important. And the name of the code is bytecode. So let us see what is happening in case of C and C++ and what is happening in case of Java. In case of C and C++, the program you have written is converted into a machine level language after the compilation. But in case of Java programming language, it is not going to be converted into a machine level language. It is going to be converted into some intermediate code, and the name of the intermediate code is bytecode. And remember one thing, computer only understands ones and zeros. It will never understand a bytecode, or it will never understand a high level language code. Now my question is, how this intermediate code or how this bytecode will be executed in a computer system? If the computer system does not understand bytecode, how it can execute that thing? The solution for this one is, there is one thing called as JVM, right? There is one thing called as JVM. The full form of this JVM is Java Virtual Machine. The full form of this JVM is Java Virtual Machine. And this Java Virtual Machine is going to run the programs of Java. So here, the compilation and execution of the Java programming language does not depend upon the computer system, right? So all these programs are getting executed by the JVM, right? That is the main reason why we are calling this Java as an platform independent language. It never depends upon the operating system, right? It will only depends upon this JVM. So any computer system which is having this Java virtual machine inside the computer system that can run any Java program or that can run any bytecode from the other computer systems, right? So this is the main reason why we call this Java as an platform independent programming language, right? And let us see the next buzzword of Java programming language, right? So let us see the next one. The next buzzword is it is a simple programming language. The reason why we call this as Java as a simple programming language in the sense the people who already studied about C and C++ programming language, they will feel very easy because all the concepts of Java programming language are derived, not all the concepts, most of the concepts of Java programming language are derived from C programming language and C++ programming language. So that is the main reason why we call this as a simple programming language. So the people who are already experts in C or C++, they can easily learn Java. So that is the main reason why we call this Java as a simple object-oriented programming language. And then the fourth one, Java is a secure programming language. The main reason why we call this Java as a secure programming language in the sense, Java does not support the concept of pointers, right? Java does not support the concept of pointers. At the same time, because of encapsulation, right? Because of encapsulation, we are providing some security for the global variables. So I want to explain this one with a simple program. There are two things in A comma B, and there is one method called as void M1, and then there is one more method called as void M2, right? So let us assume this M1 method needs only the variable A, right? This M1 method needs only the variable A in order to get executed. And then this M2 method will need only variable B for its execution. So here my question is, M1 does not need the variable B. So M1 does not need the variable B. Although M1 does not need the variable B, we are unable to provide security for the method M1. Just a second. Right. We are unable to provide security for variable B inside M1 because although this M1 method does not need the variable B, we are unable to provide the security. At the same time, M2 method needs only variable B for its execution, but we cannot restrict M2 method to use variable A. So that is, there is no security for variable B inside M1 and there is no security for variable A inside M2. So here the solution for this problem is encapsulation. Encapsulation in the sense we are going to wrap the variables and the methods which operate on those variables in a single entity. Here, what we are going to do is we are going to wrap the things. How can we wrap the things? Let us see how can we wrap the things. So here, let us wrap the things. Int a is the variable, right? And the method which is working on this variable a is m1, right? A is m1. So what we are going to do is, right, and we are going to keep the things, in a single block, right? We are going to keep the things in a single block, and similarly we are going to keep the variable b, right? And the method which is working on this variable is void m2, in a single block. So now int a is only available for m1 and int b is only available for m2. So now the m2 method cannot use the variable a, and at the same time the m1 method cannot use the variable b, because we have encapsulated the variable and the method which is operating on that variable. So here these type of variables are called as global variables. So int a comma b on the left hand side are called as global variables, because these variables are available for all the methods of a program. So if you see the variable a and b are available for m1 and a and b are available for m2. But on the right hand side, we cannot call this variable as a global variable because int a is not available for m2. And at the same time, we cannot call this variable as a local variable because it is not only restricted for m1. If we have another method inside this m1, let us assume there is one more method called as void m3, and even this m3 can also use this variable int a. So it is not restricted to a single method, so we cannot call this as a local variable. At the same time, this variable a is not available to all the methods. That is why we cannot call this as global variable. So on the left hand side, int a comma b are available to all the methods. That's why we are calling them as global variables. But on the right hand side, int a cannot be local because it can be used both in M1 and M3, and int a cannot be global because it is not available for M2. So we are calling this particular variable as instance variable. So the name of the variables inside the class are called as instance variable. Remember this name, instance variables. So what are instance variables? In the sense, instance variables are the variables, they are neither global nor local. Why we are calling it as neither local nor global? In the sense, they are not available to all the methods, and at the same time we cannot use them for a particular method. They can be used in 2 or 3 methods which lies inside the class. And let us see the next buzzword. So I'm sorry. And then, so this is how we can provide security for the variables. That is why we can call Java as a secure programming language. And one more thing is that Java does not support the concept of pointers. So if the concept of pointers is not supported in Java, then obviously we are providing some security. So in C programming language, because of the use of pointers, we can change the values of the variables without knowing the name of the variable. We all know that the pointer will play with the addresses of the variables. So by knowing the address of the variable, the value of the variable can be changed. So that is very dangerous. So the concept of pointers was not supported in Java. That is why we call it as a secure programming language. And the next one is Java is an architecture neutral language. Why we call this Java as an architectural neutral language? In the sense, in C programming language, if we observe, if we declare a variable as int a, some compilers will allocate 2 bytes of memory for that variable a, and the remaining compilers will allocate 4 bytes for the same variable a. That is, the memory allocation is different from for one variable in one computer system, and the memory allocation for the same variable in another computer system may be different. So all the compilers, all the old compilers will allocate only 2 bytes of storage for an integer variable in C programming language. And all the new versions, not all the new versions, most of the new versions will allocate 4 bytes. That is, the memory allocation for the same variable, for the same data type is different in different architectures. But in Java programming language, if we use any version of the compiler or any computer system or anything for an integer variable, it is going to allocate only 4 bytes. If we use a old compiler, it will allocate 4 bytes. And if you use a new compiler also, it will allocate it 4 bytes. That is why we call it as an architectural neutral. It is neutral among all the architectures. But a C programming language, it is not neutral among the architectures. If we use one architecture, it is going to allocate one amount of space. And if we change the architecture, it is going to allocate a new space, right? And the next buzzword of Java programming language is it is a portable programming language, right? Portable in the sense we can install and run the Java JVM or JDK in any of the electronic systems. That is, we can use them in mobile phones, we can use them in computer system, we can use them in laptops, or we can use them anything else. So that is why we call this as a portable programming language. And the next one is Java is a robust programming language. The reason why we call this Java as a robust in the sense, here the error checking will be done twice, during the compile time and during the runtime. So the errors which are observed during the compilation of the program are called as compile time errors, and the errors which were observed during the runtime of the program are called as runtime errors. That is why we call this as a robust programming language. So we all know how to handle compile time errors. How to handle compile time errors in the sense, compile time errors will occur. Please mute. Compile time errors will occur during the compilation of the program. Some of the examples of these compile time errors are missing a semicolon, missing a braces, or missing a double quotates, etc. So we can make them corrected by just going into the program, and we can make necessary corrections in order to avoid the compile time errors. But runtime errors are those errors which will not be identified during the compilation of the program. Let us assume I have written a division program. So I have written C equal to A by B. If the value of B is 0, we cannot divide any number with 0. So that type of errors are called as runtime errors, and we call the name of the error as divided by 0. So that type of errors can be corrected during the runtime of the program. Don't get confused. The reason why we call this as a robust programming in the sense the error checking will be done twice, that is during the compile time and during the runtime, right? And let us see the next one. Java is a multi-threaded programming language. Why we call this Java as a multi-threaded in the sense, We can divide a large program into multiple number of parts, and each and every part is called as thread, right? And we can execute all these threads simultaneously. Listen, if there are 100 lines of code and we are dealing with a multi-threading program, we can divide that 100 lines of code into 25 lines of code each, and each and every 25 lines of code can be called as a thread. And if we can execute all these 4 threads simultaneously, then the concept is called as multi-threading. So here in Java, Java allows the programmer to run the program in multiple number of threads simultaneously. Okay, and then Java is a interpreted programming language. Why we call this as an interpreted? In the sense, so we cannot call Java as an directly interpreted. We can call them as it is both compiled and interpreted. Initially, if we write a program and if we compile the program, the entire program will get compiled. Once after the getting the .class file, the .class file will be executed by the JVM. At the time, the Java program will be interpreted.